Are you sure this is legal?
I don't know. It's fun though, isn't it?
It is going to take us weeks to erase the damage this has done to our children.
Oh, come on!
Welcome back. It's the Run and Shoot podcast. I'm Ryan, joined by Chuck. How you doing, Chuck?
Man, doing pretty good. It's good to be back on the set, man.
Good to be talking sports. It's been great to watch MLB, NBA action, even though the Grizzlies not off to a good start whatsoever. There's still some hope there. It's growing thin, though.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like Memphis started out with promise in the spring, before all the COVID breakout. They were kind of on a hot streak, holding the 8th seed down pretty good. I think they were up like 2.5, 3 games there for a little bit. But, I think it kind of killed that momentum when they had to cut the season off.
Well, some big games early. Losing to the Pelicans, not good because that's one of the contenders. Also, the Blazers. That game was phenomenal.
That was
Went
fun.
to overtime.
That
Right
was
at
fun.
the end of that, John Morant with the breakaway on the steal, and he slips right at the buzzer. As soon as he broke away, I thought game over. But phenomenal game there. Not so much so far. Today, against Utah, they just lost the 4th game tonight. What can you say? That they started off for 3 quarters and played pretty well, but then down the stretch just really couldn't get it done. Losing Triple J for the season.
Yeah.
Not a good thing. But, we'll get back to that. Chuck, why don't you go ahead and hit us with a couple of headlines going on. What you got to talk about there?
All right, we got the MLB recap going on. As you know, baseball is back and it's hitting off really well. We got a couple of surprises out there, like the Minnesota Twins out there. They're out there and owning their division pretty much right now. They're leading their division. You look at the Yankees, man. The Yankees bats are killing it right now, especially Aaron Judge, who has just been hitting. I think is on a 4 or 5 game home run hitting streak right now. That dude is on fire, and he's looking good.
He's pretty good.
Yes, he is. He's very good. But back to the Braves, though.
I saw in your notes that they got off to a slow start, but I just don't agree with you necessarily. There's a couple bad games sprinkled in here. Losing Soroka.
That's a big one.
Not a good thing at all. But, hopefully we're going to have some guys that are going to step up. Nowitzki, Bryce Wilson, potentially. Those guys are going to be stepping up to help out. But when you say slow start, the Braves, I don't know if you knew this, leading the league in runs scored right now. 69 runs scored.
Well, I think I'm looking at more of the record per se because coming into the season, the NL, to me, is right now for the Dodgers to lose right now because they come in as the favorite, because they already been to the World Series before. And before that, though, it was the Braves and the Dodgers. So
when you say record, though, they're 8-4.
Right.
They're 8-4 to start. 7-3 in their last 10, and leading, by 4 games right now in the NL East. So,
well,
no worries there. I think what you do have to worry about is consistency because it is a young core that's been a little bit ahead of schedule according to what a lot of folks thought, but they're playing really well. Acuna blasting the ball. It looks like he's just starting to just get back in the swing of things, no pun intended.
It's just like I go back to said earlier, you got to get in game shape because, you're always prepping for April, but you had to prep for August.
And it's weird. You got to get up to game speed, too.
Right.
And you don't have fans. You get all these precautions you got to take with the face masks and everything else. Small problems for those guys, obviously, to get to play baseball. But it is a little bit weird. They're pumping in some of the noise, which I've found, I don't know about you, it's all right. We probably would miss it more if we didn't have some of the noise pumped in, but they did a good job of doing like local stuff.
Right.
Pumping in the stuff that's locally known for those teams to give them a little bit of that hometown feel when they're.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just like the cardboard thing. They pump in that noise to add it in, just kind of, it's not the real deal, but it also, it gives that game experience, That's part of the game, It's not just playing ball, it's the atmosphere of itself. of the fans. But also over the weekend, the Dodgers and Astros played, and you could tell there's some testy going on there, man. Some very high octane.
Didn't they plunk like 3 batters in a row in that game?
Well, you know why, man. You know, I mean, come on.
They're a bunch of cheaters.
I mean, if you were the Dodgers, how would you feel?
Cheated.
I'll admit. You've been angry. So I'm not surprised. And is it going to be the last that we see that happen? No.
Not at all.
No, especially the past playoff contenders that had to go against the Astros that year they won. Yeah, they're going to get their shot in. They're going to get that shot in. So, to me, that's all it is for baseball. I want to go back to the Memphis Grizzlies there for a little bit. Let's go to NBA. They've lost their last 4, lost to the Jazz today. And speaking of which, Mr. Conley's on the Jazz team. We could use him right now. But as you said, we lost Triple J. I think, what was it, a torn meniscus? I think it was.
It was a torn meniscus.
That's not as brutal as an ACL or MCL, but still, when you tear something in your knee, it's not good.
You don't like it, especially for the big guys. But with the medicine the way it is now, they're going to get him fixed up. He'll be back for next season. But, man, it would have been nice for a playoff push potentially if they can get things together. But starting 0-4, they've certainly made things pretty difficult for themselves.
Well, if there's a silver lining in all this, the Grizzlies still hold the 8th seed. I think they're up like a game and a half, I think. But that lead's dwindling. So, I mean, they can still turn it around. 4 games, if they win out, they're going to playoffs. But I doubt it because I think the last 4 of their games is going to be very, very tough.
Yeah, there is no margin for error from here.
Right.
And, you know, it could still come down to a play-in as far as between them and Portland here, too. And then you're playing L.A. in that spot. So, you know, I don't know. We'll see. Hope's dwindling as far as that goes for the Grizzlies right now, but we're going to hold out hope for the boys. A young squad that's going to be fun to watch for a long time.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to say anything bad, but they've got to get it together. And it is too bad because they were playing pretty well, before the pandemic.
They were white hot. I mean, I think they won like 7 or 8 games in the row there, and they were starting to build that lead in the 8th seed. I mean, they were looking good. They were playing together. That chemistry was there. But like I said, when you cut that season off back in March and you put it back on in late July, early August, that kills that momentum. That kills it.
It certainly does. And coming up, what they've got, the Thunder, the Raptors, the Bucks, the Celtics.
Tough slate. That's a tough slate.
It's a tough slate.
I mean, at least 3 of those are like playoff caliber teams.
I mean, the only one you could point to and say probably a definite win is the Thunder, and that's not a definite at all. Chris Paul's playing very well.
Yeah, the Thunder's actually playing pretty good. But I've noticed a lot of good upsets that's happened in the bubble. You know, like the Brooklyn Nets put on a show against the Milwaukee Bucks, the top team in the East. The Bucks have lost momentum. To me, the Raptors are the best in the East right now. They're putting it together. They're looking good. They're actually got that chemistry going. Got that momentum.
Raptors have played great.
They have played great.
Van Fleet's made himself some money the way he's scoring right now. He is a man that's on fire.
Cha-ching. Pay the man. But as you know, the L.A. Lakers are the first to clinch their conference. So it'll be curious to see what they do from here, knowing that they got it clinched. Pretty much they're going to be the number 1 seed. So with that being said, do you feel like they're going to be resting any of the players?
Probably.
Well, I would because, I mean, not only do you have to worry about injury, you got to worry about COVID, which, by the way, they have done a tremendous job in the bubble right now.
Tremendous job keeping players healthy and not letting that spread inside the bubble. Lou Williams almost cost the whole thing.
Hey, what do we say, though? The chicken wings were worth it.
I don't know if they would have been worth it if he would have brought COVID in there and sacrificed the season.
You give me ranch, you give me some celery and some buffalo sauce, them wings are worth it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just kidding, man. Yeah, that was a bonehead move on his part. But we'll switch over to the NHL. They also have bubble games going on too in Canada. I think I called it Edmonton and Ontario, I think. Those are the 2 bubble games. And I want to talk about Nashville for a minute. They came out and actually played pretty good in the opener. First period, not so good. It was 3-1, and then they rallied and almost tied the game late in the third, and then just didn't happen. Lost game 1. So, I think it was Tuesday night, they played the Coyotes again in game 2, and they pretty much blew the doors off of them, winning that game 4-2. So the series is tied 1-1 in this game, in the best of 5. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Predators right now? It seems like they're kind of, there. They're kind of like they're surprising me because I figured the Coyotes would blow the doors off of them.
To be fair, I've not watched it at all. I've saw highlights and I've looked at box scores and things like that. Again, it's my most casual sport as far as hockey goes. I see that they lost today 4-1 to the Coyotes.
Oh, they did lose today?
They did lose today 4-1. It looks like Arvidsson's the only person that scored. But yeah, definitely lost 4-1. So the Coyotes leading that series 2-1.
So one more game, they go on. I hate to see that, but I kind of called it.
What's going on with Pekka Rinne? So
it's just, Pekka Rinne's. After his Stanley Cup, after the Stanley Cup run that the Predators have, what has Pekka Rinne actually done?
Saros gave up 3 goals today. Would it be more beneficial to have Rinne in there? Is it an injury thing? Is it just a rotation?
Dude, I think it's a rotation at this point. He's in the twilight of his career. I think he's like in his late 30s. He's right on the doorstep of 40. To me,
like I said, obviously I haven't watched enough to know.
I haven't
either. What a fall, right? Not necessarily a fall, but he was playing so great for so long. Sometimes that's got to be a hard thing to do, though, right?
And it goes back
to
what
goalie in the NHL.
It is hard.
And be consistent at that year in and year out.
He was the best. The year that Nashville went to the Stanley Cup, he was the best defensive player on that ice. You knew that when Pekka Rinne stepped on that ice, you knew the Nashville fans were riled up, that you knew that he was going to go in and play his best defensive game. It's not that I'm not saying he's trying now. I'm just saying he's in the twilight of his career. And, it's just not in the cards.
Not in the cards.
It's not in the cards. So, and also, like with the NBA, 0 positive tests. So these bubbles are working.
Doing a good job.
All around. The NBA and NHL are doing it right.
Injuries. I saw Jonathan Isaac. He got hurt for Orlando. For the most part, though, and it was a pretty bad injury. You hate to see it for him because that's going to take a while to rehab that.
It was a knee injury, wasn't it?
I believe it was, yeah. You saw it looked like as he was taking off to go up for a layup, or he was attacking the basket. But you hate to see that. Other than that, there's not been much as far as injuries. Obviously, Triple J, he got hurt. But for the most part, the NHL, the NBA, doing a good job of keeping players safe, keeping them healthy. Let's hope that continues.
Injuries just comes with the territory. As long as we keep the bubbles under control, I think we'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. They're doing great. Now we'll switch over to some NFL news that's going on. We had some more opt-outs. The good news is Thursday, no more. There's a deadline, which is tomorrow. So the notables right now that I have is C.J. Mosley, the linebacker out of the New York Jets. And, he's probably a grade 1.
That would be a big one if the Jets had any chance of doing anything this year anyways.
Right. So with that being said, if C.J. Mosley was still with the Ravens, would he have opted out then? Probably not.
I don't know necessarily.
Well, he said, the reason that he opted out is because he was concerned of his family, which I understand.
Yeah, and I respect that.
Damian Williams, the running back out of KC, he broke out last year.
That was a big one.
That's probably the biggest one on this list.
Because he played great. He also, I think he's the running back that has those the Jordan cleats, right?
Yeah.
You ever seeing those in the Super Bowl?
I do, man.
Those are tight.
That was nice. Very nice.
Very nice.
And to me, if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, I thought he was the MVP of the game.
Yeah, he played really well for him. I'm sure they had plans for him to be a big part of that offense this year. So there's going to be some guys stepping in to fill that role, and we'll see who's going to step in there and actually be productive.
Yeah, and we also have Jawan James. He's an offensive lineman from the Broncos. He's probably the best offensive lineman they got. I think he's like the blindside blocker tackle there. So that's a huge hit as far as like for Drew Lock having that protection on the blind side.
And when's the deadline?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. So what are you going to do? Like, do you think Titans Twitter is going to go crazy if we have a notable Titan that opts out?
I don't think so. I think we're at a good place right now. I mean, as an organization, it seems like J-Rob, Vrabel are on top of this thing, and you can tell when the players are interviewing, they have a little bit of confidence as far as when they talk about COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see though. There's going to be players in between now and then that are going to opt out. So hopefully it's nobody notable for the Titans or nobody notable across the league as far as that goes for entertainment purposes, but you respect their decision. Family first, right?
Right. I mean,
but
that's a given. You got to. I mean, if it threatens your family's safety, then you need to do what's best for your family.
But God forbid something like Henry or Tannehill or something like that, we would be done for.
Bite your tongue, sir. Bite your tongue. Another development. I think this is more of a rumor than development. Seahawks are monitoring Antonio Brown. But Pete Carroll has come out and said he would be open for a Josh Gordon return.
Well, Carroll is one of the only coaches probably crazy enough to try to make it work again with Antonio Brown and with Josh Gordon. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't test for marijuana in the NFL now, right?
I know
the NBA doesn't, but I think the NFL did that. We'll have to fact check that one.
Yeah, I want to double check and make sure. But
and if so, bring Josh Gordon in. And you know what? It's a crime that Ricky Williams got all the shit that he did about all the weed. Imagine if they'd have just let him smoke all the weed he wanted while he was playing and not gave him trouble for it. He would probably definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, even Ricky Williams, do you ever watch that old 30 for 30 that he had?
Yes.
And everybody thought he got tired of saying, well, you're a druggie and stuff. He's like, he took it because it helped with his pain. It helped with his focus of the game.
It's legal in a lot of states now, which is why you're seeing leagues have to combat that and say, look, why are we going to test for this stuff when it's legal for people to buy in a lot of states? And you would think logically it would be legal federally at some point, but that's for another day.
I think Gordon's situation's different because he's abused alcohol, and he abuses it.
He talked about where he was playing while he was messed up.
Exactly. So I mean, his situation compared to Ricky Williams is a little more volatile.
I'll bet there's a good percentage of players, though. I know there is in the NBA that does play stoned at least. Well, and I'll bet there's some players in the NFL that do, especially the pain that they go through. There's players that definitely play with painkillers. That's a normal thing in the league.
Well, it's just Gordon got the rotten luck of getting caught.
Yeah, he does need to, like Stephen A. Smith would say, stay off the weed.
That's impossible with him, right?
Well, I mean, it's legal there in Seattle.
Right. But I feel like my thoughts on this, Wilson has already come out and said he would love to play with AB. He's worked out with him.
I bet he would.
I mean, that's a major upgrade. And there's another article saying the Titans should pick him up because he's a big name. That's not a J-Rob move. I would, because look, I'm kind of a fan of Seattle too. I would much rather see him go to Seattle. I think they're better equipped to handle that situation. Maybe. I don't know if anybody can handle that situation. I don't think nobody
But I don't
can.
want to see him in Tennessee.
I don't want to see him in Titans uniform because I think he would hurt our team.
But if he came here, I would embrace it. I just don't want to see it, honestly.
Now, when we were first lobbying for a trade with him, I was on board. I was like, yeah, but then thank God that we didn't get him because he brought all that trouble to Las Vegas over there, or Oakland at the time.
If he's got some mental help since all of the tirades that we've seen online on his Instagram and everything else, then then hopefully he can come into the league and play. But man,
yeah,
he definitely needs some help.
But it's a shame, too. He is a once-in-a-generation
And
talent.
Josh Gordon's solid. I'd like to see him sign there.
Yeah, I think we'll see more of Gordon than we would of AB. I think so. Isaiah Wilson, it's a good news for the Titans. Isaiah Wilson is signed as a Titan, and he's off the COVID list.
Good. It's going to be good to get him some reps there, especially at right tackle. Do you think he starts?
Oh, yeah, he's slated to start.
Slated to start at right tackle?
Yeah, he's slated to start pretty much where Conklin was left out.
Okay.
But if he doesn't work out, we've got Kelly, and Kelly, to me, is a very reliable backup.
Oh, yeah, the team loves Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a true Titan. I mean, he is a true Titan. And other developments for the 49ers, the tight end position just got a little bulkier as Jordan Reed will sign with the 49ers there. What do you
Former
think?
Gator, and a good player. He's had a lot of concussions.
I agree. I think he was a great fantasy tight end for me when he was on.
That's the only problem. When he was with Washington, obviously a shit show of an organization, the Washington football team, they don't want you to say Redskins anymore, but when he was there, he took a beating, and that's one thing that I remember him being. He's always been a playmaker, but he's always in concussion protocol the last couple of seasons, it feels like.
It does. But I think he also goes into a very good situation with the 49ers. If you think about it, that medical staff in Washington, and I'm not trying to trash him, this is just facts, what I'm about to say. They handled the Trent Williams situation the wrong way, saying he was fine and he had, a tumor in his head? So, I mean, if they botched that, how many times did they botch Jordan Reed's concussions?
Well, and he goes there, and, he's obviously not playing a number one role or anything. They have Kittle.
Right. So, there's no pressure. So, to me, could we see a career rejuvenance with the 49ers? I doubt it, because I think that's Kittle's position to lose, because he's the best tight end in the league now.
Yeah, he's going to go in there and play a supportive role as a backup tight end and hopefully finish his career out strong.
He might get a Super Bowl ring when it's all said and done. I mean, I ain't got nothing against the man. I don't care if he's a Gator or not. That dude is a flat-out baller at tight end. He was good.
Pretty good.
Another veteran that got signed to, I think it was last week, the Buccaneers bulk up at running back, and they actually got former All-Pro LaShawn McCoy. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Mr. McCoy coming down with Mr. Brady and Grunk down there in Tampa Bay?
I like the move, Chuck. I think it's a good move for the Buccaneers.
That is a good move. It bulks up the running back position, and maybe it pushes Ronald Jones II and Peyton Barber. It just depends, because that was a running back by a committee before he got there.
You can never have too many good running backs, especially this year where, you're going to have injury lists you're going to have to watch out for. There's going to be COVID quarantines and things like that potentially. You know what? If you can add a good veteran running back, especially a guy as shifty as Shady McCoy, I think that's a good thing.
Right. And it's just, to me, I see this working out as, because I think he's a better pass catcher than Jones and Barber combined. Because when he was in New England, Tom Brady when he was in New England, he always did the checkdowns to James White. James White was a receiving extraordinaire up there at running back. So you get LaShawn McCoy, he's probably a little bit of passes prime between the tackles, but he could be a good running back as a receiving back, because he's still quick. And I feel like, why not? Bruce Arians is an offensive mind. And like you said, you can never have too much running backs.
Yeah, and he's excited to go down there and play with Tom Brady and Gronkowski and the rest of that high-powered offense.
Yeah,
I think he'll embrace whatever role they give him and go out there and be ready to chase a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, I agree. In other NFL news, we got Lions. Matthew Stafford had a COVID false test. So
I saw that.
That was a little weird, It came out earlier this week saying it was a positive. He goes on the COVID list, goes away, and then a couple of days later says, hey, I'm good. It's a false test. So
I saw his wife was trashing the NFL for how they handled the publicity with that.
And what worries me is that the NFL is already botching the COVID, how they're handling COVID. Because think about it, the NBA's doing good with it right now. The NHL's doing good with it right now. The MLB, doing okay, but the NFL's not really getting off to a good start with it.
It's going to be interesting to see how it's handled. I'm just hoping that we get a full season out of it. I'm hoping that everybody stays safe, obviously, too. Don't get me wrong, but we're going to see. We're going to see. It's pretty unpredictable. It's one of those things that I feel like a broken record.
Yeah. So in another professional league, football league, may be coming back. The XFL just got bought by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson with other partners. What do you think of that, Ryan?
That's pretty cool news, right? He obviously seen some potential in what we had going with the XFL before it got shut down early because of COVID. And it was a pretty cool product, I thought. I had fun watching some of those guys, and you could see definitely a disparity in talent, but you saw some guys rising to the top, some guys that are on NFL rosters now, and it was a good time to have it as far as that little gap there in the year.
Right.
The Rock going in there, he's an entertainer. He's not really failed at anything he's tried to do in life. He's got a football and an entertaining career that he's going to combine right here.
And, yeah.
So I think him and his buying team that did this obviously have a plan in place, right?
You want to hear a funny story about this? Who initially wanted to buy it first?
Who?
The Rock's ex-wife.
Who's that?
I forget her name, but I did read on it.
He beat her out for it?
No, here's the deal. I think she wanted it first. So what does she do? She calls up her ex-husband, The Rock, because I think the reason she called him because he knows Vince McMahon, the owner of the XFL. So as she saw the potential, figured, to give The Rock a chance to buy some of it. I think it was her company. Of course, Dwayne Johnson is his own brand. And then I think there's another partner in there somewhere. I think The Rock had to pay like $15 million, I think. I have to check my facts on that.
Sounds right.
But reading the ESPN article on that, I thought that was hilarious. Like, if I had an ex-wife calling me to buy a potential league, I told her to go screw herself or something, probably.
Hey, but he must trust the investment. We're going to see what The Rock and that group can do. But if they can make the XFL work, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah, I liked it last year. There's potential. So, third time the charm, we'll see. We'll see. Let's switch over to college real quick as we had some big major moves. As you know, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are only doing conference games. So I kind of had a feeling that, everybody else is going to follow suit. So with that being said, the Big 12 approves a 9-1 season, meaning 9 conferences and 1 non-con. So that'd be fun, because you have that 1 non-conference game, depending on what it is.
Yeah, that'll be good. And then the FCC doing their 10 conference games. It's going to be even more of a gauntlet than it normally is, you would think, because it's tough to come out of the SEC undefeated as is to get into that playoff system or with 1 loss. But now you're adding some more of those teams in there, and the SEC, it may be more competitive now than it ever has as far as just across the board.
Well, I think we got to add 2 more games, 2 more conference games. So the West, SEC West is like doing an auction for the weakest teams, like Vanderbilt's on the board. You got Vanderbilt, not like Bama, LSU, but like, I'll take Bama, I'll take Vanderbilt, to the highest bidder kind of a thing. So, how do you feel about that, though, just conference games? To me, as long as we're playing the game, I'm happy with it.
That's where I stand.
I'm just at a point, pick your battles, and I'm going to pick my battle. Hey, SEC play, to me, that's the most important part of the year. Yes, we lose the game with Oklahoma because I kind of want to see how we did against a little bit of a superior opponent. But we're going to get our chance with, Florida, Bama, and now I'm sure we're going to get scheduled to somebody else because we got to schedule 2 more conference games. So it'll be interesting to see. And one more bit of college football news, and it came out this morning. UConn Huskies, the University of Connecticut, cancels their 2020 football season. Why is this important? It's the first FBS school to do so. Ryan, my question to you is this going to be a trend for like non-traditional football schools?
Maybe. You're seeing other players opt out too, which has been, I think, the bigger story because UConn football, sometimes they put a decent squad together, but nobody's really going to miss them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. UConn is more of a basketball school.
Yes.
So with that being said, like, you know, you get the Sun Belt teams. They're going to do conference games, by the way. I should have added that in there. But you mentioned there's players opt out. Bateman from University.
Rashad Bateman, yeah, that's a big one.
He's supposed to be a number one first-round pick.
Micah Parsons with Penn State. Of course, we saw that one earlier.
He's like a top 10 talent.
So we could see other guys do it. I mean, what if you saw like a Trevor Lawrence do something like that? Do you think it's going to be more interesting if you do see more players opt out? What if you have some of those big-time players opt out that were going to be drafted high anyways? Would it be more interesting to see some of those guys maybe down the depth chart that wouldn't have had those opportunities anyways?
Well, it's a double-edged sword because I'm going to talk about my Vols because I know there's some players on there that are potential first-round picks. Trey Smith, for example. As you know, he's had the issues with the blood clots and whatnot. So there's a very high risk for him because you never know with them blood clots. And with COVID out there now, he might decide to close shop and go ahead and just focus on the draft because he's supposed to be a late first, second-round pick according to Maylock. So, I mean, and then you also got, but at the same, it's like you said, at the same time, there should be another player that's looking for an opportunity.
Yeah,
there
because
it is.
now more than ever, if you are opting out and looking ahead to the NFL draft, you have more of an excuse than you ever had.
Well, I mean, it's nothing new. Players have done that even before COVID came around. Like, I think Jadeveon Clowney did that for a little bit.
No, they said that he should, but he didn't.
Oh, that is right. That is right. We really thought that was a possibility.
Yeah, he would have still been a high pick.
So that's it for the headlines so far. Ryan, let's get into the good meat of the podcast. Like, we gave you an appetizer with the headlines. The main meat of the podcast today is something I've been looking for, and I'm sure Ryan's been looking forward to all year long. Fantasy football is back.
I'm excited for some fantasy football, Chuck.
I am too. So, Ryan, let's go ahead and talk about some advices you would give to win your fantasy football championship. I'll go ahead and start it off if that's all right with you, Chief.
Go right ahead.
All right. So, I've lived and died by this list since I've done fantasy football back in 8th grade. I'm now 32. I've done fantasy football for a very, very long time. Won a couple of championships. I wish I wouldn't won more, but it's just not in the cards sometimes.
Humble brag.
Humble. Yeah. Sometimes you got to humble yourself. Humble yourself. Number 5, to me, you got to do your homework. If you want to start having a good fantasy season, do your homework because let's say you're just coming into a league, never done it before. My advice to you is start mock drafting. Get your magazines at a stand. Go to Google how to, the rankings and stuff of players. Get used to the names.
Never been a mock drafter, Chuck.
I am. I love mock drafting. It gives me,
I like to look at articles, though, where they'll show like a simulation of multiple mock drafts and show you percentages like that. Maybe every once in a while. I'm not a mock drafter, though.
The reason I do that is not because for the first 10 rounds. First 10 rounds, it's pretty predictable. You're going to take the best player available. It's just when you get in your later rounds. And then you don't know some of the players, but when you do that and you do your homework on them to get the cheat sheets, get the articles, you read up on that guy as you're mock drafting, then when the real deal happens, you know who he is.
Yeah, you got to do your homework. But when it comes to, mock drafts, I don't do it. I just straight up raw dog that draft. I go in there and I just,
guns blazing?
Yeah, you go in there and you just, there's a feel to it.
Yeah, and it's different. Every draft is different. Like, you got the auction leagues, you got the, standard leagues, you got the offline leagues. And then also you got keeper leagues you got to think about. So, I mean, there's different kinds of what drafts are. Number 4 to me, don't draft a quarterback high.
Agree with that one.
I mean, you can't. I mean, as bad.
Only a handful of guys.
Like maybe a Patrick Mahomes, but he's as good as he is. He's not the be-all, end-all to your team. You got to build a core of skilled players. And I remember back about early 2000s-ish, like I said, 8th grade is about 2003, 2004 for me. You know, at that time, it was about the quarterback. You know, it's all about, I remember it was Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, you know, these big names that got big numbers every year. But you started seeing that landscape shift to more skill positions, like mostly running backs go like first round, like cakes. But never go for the quarterback high, especially for like, you know, a mid quarterback. Like you can still get a quarterback in the 10th round that is still capable of putting up good numbers.
I agree. Usually somebody decent drops every year that you're like, wow, I'm getting Drew Brees this late in the draft, which actually happened to me in my ESPN league last year. And ended up taking me to a championship.
I was in that league. And I think it was like 11th round. And I kind of kept my eyes like, he's going to keep dropping. And if at that next round he keeps dropping, he's coming to me. But you ended up getting it, and that was the end of the story. Number 3, know your opponents in your league. By meaning, know the other, you know, fantasy players in your league. You know, like, for example, if you got a Titans fan, and, you know, exploit that. Get a little dirty. Be the dirtiest player in the game. Be like Ric Flair. Be dirty. Get your hands dirty and draft that player in front of them. Yeah, they may not like you for a week and not talk to you. But, you know, when you do that, you can have that other opponent scrambling, and you have them on their knees begging for that player, and you can get pretty much anything you want, which is like most of the time I do that. I don't care to get dirty.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
If you're playing a guy and you see 5 minutes before kickoff that he's not read up on an injury report and he's got a guy in there that's not going to play, are you going to text him and give him a heads up, Chuck?
No.
No?
You're on your own.
Oh, man.
You're on your own,
Savage. Got to do it. Got to do that. You got to do your own work.
Well, it's like nice guys finish last. In fantasy football, you do finish last for being a nice guy.
You don't believe in that fantasy karma?
No, I don't. It happens. I mean, it's part of life. But know your opponents of the league. Know their weaknesses, like whether they be a fanboy or, you know, like a college homeboy. Like, for example, in the league that we're in my league, you're in with me, the Cutthroat Football League, I've got one player that's a Bama boy, and he finishes dead last every year. He's an idiot. I love him, but he goes after, like, the first round. We do individual defenses. What does he pick first round? J.J. Watt. I was like, what are you doing?
Not smart.
Not smart. I love him to death. I'm not going to name him on here because he don't deserve to get trashed hard right now. But, and number 2, watch The Wire daily. Watch your free agency. Like, if you don't have that handcuff or a starter that goes down, you best be on that wire, and I mean you better be on it hot and heavy. You got to live by the wire. And I think it leads into my number 1. Adapt throughout the season. Like,
going to be a big one this year.
It's going to be a big one because after you draft, a lot of people are content with what they have. All right, I've got all my players that I wanted. But things happen during the season. Like, values go up on other players that you think are better, trade them. We got COVID stuff going on. You got to watch that. Schedules could get easier down the road that you thought were going to be harder. That value goes up on that player. Things change. So adapt. Don't get stuck on one set lineup because injuries happen. Values go up on other players. Values go down in other players. You got to adapt. So, Ryan, that's my advices, my top 5 advices. What do you got?
Some pretty sound advice there, Chuck. I'll hit you with my top 5 as far as fantasy football rules to live by, huh? So, number 5, don't be a homer.
That is true.
And there's multiple ways of looking at that as far as, stacking your team with all your favorite players from your one specific favorite team. You don't want to ever do that. Also, you don't want to, and I fall guilty of this often whenever as a Titans fan.
Right.
And I have a key player that I would never, ever think of benching. But when they come to play the Titans, or if they're just playing the Titans that week, there's that thought in my head like, well, we're going to shut him down, though. So I should probably bench him this week. And then if that player goes off, I have a little bit of guilt in there if we lose. Because I'm like, oh, man, I did start, say like Odell Beckham, and then he went off for 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I have that weakness, too, with Titans. Because I remember I had Kendall Wright for so long. I was like, this is the game. I kept giving him chance after chance. And I wouldn't give any other player.
That's a bad road to go down.
I don't want to go down that road.
Kendall Wright fantasy, not a good one.
No.
Kendall Wright, Justin Hunter, and that those days. Respect to those guys. And Kendall Wright was a good player on some bad teams.
But he was not fantasy relevant.
Not at all. But yeah, number 5, don't be a homer when it comes to fantasy sports. Number 4, pay close attention to scheduling, especially this year, some of the changes that could happen. I think you hit on that one.
Right.
Number 3, have at least one quarterback on your team that's always playing from behind. Guys like Matthew Stafford.
Gardner Minshew.
Even Drew Brees sometimes, I feel like. We've mentioned him, but a lot of times his defense isn't always great about not having to make sure that Drew Brees is having to go down there and win the game in the fourth quarter.
Garbage time is key.
You want to have a quarterback that's going to get a little garbage time. Even Kyler Murray, I think, could be big as far as that goes this year. He was decent last year as a rookie.
Well, he did pick up a new weapon, so it's a high
Sure
possibility.
did. We'll probably mention that even more here in a minute.
Yes.
Also, number 2, and obviously a given, but exploit matchups. Pay attention to these things. Even though you have a set list, you feel comfortable about every week, look at potential matchups and say there's a starting cornerback 1 or quarterback 2 that's potentially going to be out or a late scratch. If you have one of those receivers that you were borderline thinking about putting in there, maybe go ahead and pull the trigger. Give them a matchup that's going to be favorable because teams and their scouting departments are going to try to exploit those things to begin with.
That is very true, Ryan.
And number 1, obviously the most important, especially this year, make sure to read your injury reports all the way up until kickoff. You've got to make sure that you do your homework through the week. But even if you are one of those spur-of-the-moment team changers like every league inevitably has, and we're going to have one of those weeks, let's be honest, where we're going to check our lineup 5 minutes before kickoff and have to make a scramble move to pull a free agent in or make just a change from the bench because of a late game scratch. And this year, with COVID and how all the testing goes, it's going to be pretty wild to see how this is going to go.
It's going to be a crazy year. So it's going to test our knowledge of fantasy. It's like we've played. I mean, I'm assuming you've played for a long time, Ryan. You've played for a long time. I've played for a long time. So as fantasy experts, I'll go ahead and throw it out there, it's going to challenge us a little bit.
But hey, what competitive player doesn't love a good challenge?
Come on down.
Come on down. As long as we've got some football.
All right.
So moving on, I see we've got a fantasy football edition, Love It or Chuck It.
Yes, we do. Now, I've been reading up on, this will be number 1, by the way. I've been reading up on Big Ben here lately. As you know, last year he had a pretty rad elbow injury, put him out for the rest of the year, and it pretty much tanked that Steelers team. I mean, when you have Mason Rudolph running his mouth instead of throwing footballs, you get the record that you get. But he could be in line for a big year. So, number 1, Ryan, Big Ben will have a stellar comeback fantasy season.
Well, I don't love Big Ben, so when I say love it, I only say love it because I agree that he probably will have a pretty good fantasy season. He's had plenty of time off now to heal up as far as that goes. We'll see if he's in good shape or not. But Big Ben, he's proven that he can get it done. He's got Juju Smith-Schuster to throw to there. Vance McDonald there at tight end.
Connor at running back to help him. So
Connor's good. He's a solid player. we'll see. He's shown that he can put up fantasy numbers even in losing efforts. So he's a guy that I'm not going to look, obviously, to draft him probably on my team. But if he's there as a free agent, I'm going to look to throw him on there as a backup quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to be a QB1, but he could be a great filler for your QB1 that's off that week.
So when you say stellar comeback fantasy season, I agree. Love it.
Yeah, I agree as well. Number 2, Ryan. Tom Brady, as you know, has not been fantasy relevant for a while, for a couple of years now, because of his age decline and the way that the Patriots, scheme goes, run first, play nasty defense. That's how Belichick has always rolled. Now Tom Brady goes to a team that is pass-happy friendly, and he has the weapons, and he has the coach. Tom Brady will be one of the quarterbacks to reach 5,000 yards this fantasy season. Love it or chuck it.
I love it. So the last 2 seasons, in 2018, he had 4,355 yards. Last year, 4,057 yards. In both of those, respectively, 29 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns last year. He's got the most loaded team, potentially, since the Brady, Welker, Stallworth team.
Randy Mouse.
Yeah. I mean, that squad was loaded, but this squad is also especially loaded. You mentioned LaShawn McCoy getting added. He's also got Ronald there in the backfield as far as that goes. I think Barber's still there as a running back, but he's got Evans outside. Help me with the other?
Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin. Yeah, how did I forget his name? Because he was stellar last year with Jameis Winston. He actually
put up better the numbers than Evans did.
And Jameis Winston couldn't even see those guys when he was throwing the football at him last year. 30 and 30. Tom Brady is going to be clicking on all cylinders and licking his chops whenever he comes out there to play with these guys. I think he could have 5,000 yards. It's going to depend like any other year. If he has a full healthy season, I think it's easily attainable.
I'm going to love it as well because, like I said, I think there's going to be some matchups of where they're going to get behind because I don't think that defense is going to hold up enough for some of these offenses they got to play because they got to play the New Orleans. They've got to go to they've got to go with some primetime games. And, there's going to be some high-octane scoring. So, yeah, I love it. I think he'll get 5,000. That's a good one.
Gotcha. So this next one, the top fantasy running back by this season's end is going to come from outside the top 15 running backs. Now, imagine this is preseason rankings we're looking at.
Yeah, this is now, folks, this is just preseason rankings. Is just looking at it. As you know, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Henry, just to name a few, are the top tier of the league right now.
Obviously inside that top 15.
So you're expecting them to be an RB1, no, regardless. But I've got one cat that I believe, because he's been there before. He's been that top tier back. David Johnson, I think could be a potential Christian McCaffrey this year. Like when he was in Arizona, got held back.
It's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot.
And he had some stellar years in Arizona. I know because I was against him in a couple of matchups throughout those years that I got obliterated.
But the dude can catch out of the backfield. He can run. He's quick. And he's still in his 20s. And he's in an offense that is running back friendly. I mean, Carlos had 1,000 yards. So to me, I could see 1,000 yards, maybe 800 receiving yards. He will be a top 5, if not a top scoring fantasy running back by the end of the year. So I love it. Yes, that's one of my picks.
Yeah, you always see somebody emerge. So when you say love it, I agree there too, that you could definitely have somebody from outside the top 15 running backs as far as being the top fantasy running back. I don't know, though. David Johnson, I would think, would be in a lot of people's top 15, but it depends on which rankings you look at. I don't know if I have a specific example. You know what? Let me revert back. Honestly, the top fantasy running back, I think it's going to be one of the guys within the top 15. Let's chuck this one, actually.
Okay. But I looked at 2 different rankings. He was ranked like 20th to 25th.
I could see that.
That is low.
I could see that. Now, maybe like a sneaky guy out there, like a Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
If he gets some opportunities in Cleveland somehow with Nick Chubb, if they split carries and he gets a sizable workload,
Exactly.
you could see him coming in there and maybe being one of those outside guys. Will he lead the league? I doubt that.
That's a possibility. We'll see. But you know, you chucked it and I loved it. Now let's go to number 4. Having a tight end 1 will be essential to win a championship. Chuck it or love it, Ryan.
You have to have a good tight end 1. That's just the way it goes. When you have the Kittles and the Kelseys and the Ertzes out there of the world, you know, it certainly helps out because it's like having a receiver. Those guys are going to get guaranteed touches week in, week out, especially with a lot of the guys playing with the mobile quarterbacks now who love to check down to those guys, the Mark Andrews of the world. Having a tight end 1, yeah, love it. Essential to winning a championship. You can patchwork around, but if you can get one of those top guys, it could definitely go a long way in ensuring that you're playing down the stretch.
I'm going to chuck it. I think you need to bulk up a receiver and running back. And because I think, for the most part, you can always get a tight end late. Like Vance McDonald came out of nowhere last year. He started the year out not even in the top 15 at tight ends. And he finished great last year. He had a couple of great games. So there's always that filler in there. You know, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews was a great one. I mean, he didn't start at the year. He started maybe top 10, but he was a free agent in one of my leagues. So, I mean, to me, I don't think it's essential. I think it's pivotal to have, but not essential like I've got to have a tight end 1. I'm going to chuck it.
Gotcha. So, the last one here. The Titans will have more fantasy studs this season than they ever have.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I mean, let's look at the roster. You got Ryan Tannehill, came off a good year, has a great chance to build off of that.
You think he'll be a fantasy stud?
I think he'll be like a high QB2, low QB1.
Okay.
And then you got A.J. Brown, stellar 1,000-yard season last year. The experts are actually ranking him in 40th overall. And guys, if you're listening to that, that is high.
I could definitely see him having a big season. As a rookie, he was awesome last year. And with Tannehill, they clicked.
I mean, now they got the chance to work over the offseason. I've got a dark horse for you. Jonnu Smith. He's a weapon.
Jonnu Smith, he showed a lot of upside and backside whenever he came down on his butt and with that touchdown, showing that 1 cheek equals 2 feet. Jonnu Smith, I definitely expect big things out of him moving forward without Walker on the roster.
Then, of course, you got Derrick Henry, the obvious number 1 scorer, probably fantasy scorer of all the Titans on the team. Then you got the defense, who is a underrated commodity.
I'm excited about the defense, probably overly excited.
So, Ryan, when I say this to you, do you see this Titans team the most fantasy relevant team in Titans history?
Yeah. Probably the most potential for the most relevancy because most Titans teams, let's be honest, not a lot of players getting plucked off there for fantasy relevance. Chris Johnson was a fantasy stud back in his day.
Smash and dash, yeah.
But there's not been very many that you're going to lean on from a Titans roster. So, yeah, I'd say this year we definitely have the most potential to have the most fantasy studs. I'd say fantasy relevancy.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, we have more studs than we've ever had before, so I love it. So, I guess you love it too.
I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Go Titans.
Go Titans. You know we had to get a little Titan love in there. That's what this podcast is about. Ooh. So, let's talk about some fantasy predictions for a little bit.
Let's hear it.
All right. Let's say in the first round, you have decisions. You have to make a decision if you want to take a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end, and let's hope you're not stupid and take a defense in the first round. I've seen some couple knuckleheads doing that in my lifetime. You got a top pick. Let's say you want to take a quarterback. Who you take in the first round if you had to take a quarterback?
Russell Wilson.
Okay, solid. I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, that's a pretty obvious answer right there, and I can't fault you for that one.
But I'm not going to go quarterback first round.
Yeah, I'm not either. But if I'm looking to draft a quarterback, my top 3 guys, as far as if I was looking in that range in the first round, I'd look at Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, because he's coming in without Danica Patrick this year, and I think he's got a little something to prove. She's pretty intense. Nothing against Danica Patrick, but, he's got to have more energy focused towards football this year. Aaron Rodgers, I think you can expect big things out of him. And here's a surprise, too. Dak Prescott. I think he's got something to prove, and he's got a lot of firepower around him down there.
Good point.
Again, my strategy usually involves not drafting a quarterback early, but if I would, I'm looking at Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or Dak Prescott. How about you, Chuck?
I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, obviously, and I hate saying this, maybe Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Maybe.
Can't fault you there.
But he would be like a last resort.
What about running back?
Running back, I would have to take Christian McCaffrey. It's obvious. You can't. I could say Kamara, but you can't ignore what Christian McCaffrey did last year. And now he's actually got a stable coaching staff. He's got a good quarterback in front of him. I could see him possibly doing more. So
yeah, I like McCaffrey. I like Derrick Henry. Even Nick Chubb there in the running back range.
Right.
As far as that goes, I would draft either one of those guys in the first round.
Yeah, and my other one, of course, the King, Derrick Henry. We got to go with the King. Another good one that would be in my top and outside for me, and I'm going to go off the wall. I'm going to say Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of Kansas City. He's a running back. As you know, Damian Williams.
Stepping in for Damian Williams.
And I've done that before. I've drafted a rookie in the first round. I drafted Ezekiel Elliott his rookie year. Had a stellar year.
Bold strategy there, Cotton.
It just depends where I was at. Like, if I was late in the first round and by, like, say if you're doing a 12-round league and you're 11th pick, all the good running backs are gone. You got to take what you can get.
I'm looking somewhere else there, but hey, more power to you.
Right. Now, at receiver, who do you got?
At receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, maybe even a Mike Evans, or I kind of have a good feeling about the Browns, which is probably a bad thing, but even Jarvis Landry.
In the first round?
I would think about it.
Bold. That's bold. My three, number one has got to be Julio Jones. That dude is consistently hitting
Julio
big.
Jones is a stud.
He's a stud. Now, Michael Thomas, the reason I didn't have him number one, he had a big year last year, yeah, but does he have Julio Jones numbers? Who consistently does it year in and year out? No, he does not. But he's getting better. He's one of the better receivers in the league, if not the top receiver in the league. So, Michael Thomas, and I'll go Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
So at tight end, who do you got?
Tight end, as far as I'm looking at fantasy studs in the first round, the only two that I would consider in the first round, obviously in a non-keeper league because these guys are obvious keepers, would be George Kittle, Travis Kelce. You may, in a keeper league, find like a Zach Ertz out there. Or, again, I may be going against the homer thing I mentioned earlier, but Jonnu Smith could be in line for a good fantasy season.
All right. I'm going to do this like in a non-keeper league. Like if you're doing a clean slate, redrafting everything again. George Kittle's number one, obviously. Travis Kelce, number two. And I'm going to say Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews.
The Baltimore tight end. I mean, he had a good year. I mean,
Lamar Jackson's going to look for his tight ends, that's for sure.
So that's why you got to draft him. And no Hayden Hurst down there. It's just all Andrews. So Andrews could be in for a big year.
Very true. What do you think about as far as, what about a defense? What about a fantasy defense?
That top defense to take? Yeah, the top defense to take, I would say the 49ers and maybe the Bears.
Okay.
Seahawks, I think, are going to be an underrated commodity.
That's who I had number one, especially with the addition of Jamal Adams.
Titans.
Legion of Boom 2.0.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the addition of Adams, I think they can be pretty good. And you got the Titans.
Don't forget the Rams defense.
Don't forget them. No. Don't forget the New Orleans Saints.
The only problem with the Rams, there's a lot of talent. I don't necessarily trust Goff. So I think he could put him in some bad situations, making some bad decisions, is the only bad thought I have in my head when I think about drafting. Because I'm not one that's going to draft a defense very high unless it's just getting to the point where I'm like, okay, look, this team can make a difference as far as a defense special teams unit goes. You used to see the Ravens back in the day, the Bears, traditionally, those defenses go. But the Seahawks has always been one of my favorites. Usually pretty solid squad, especially when it comes to fantasy points. With the addition of Jamal Adams, if I'm looking at a defense, looking at drafting one, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers if available, but they'll probably be gone somewhere in the mid 14th, 15th round, maybe earlier than that. But if I had in the later rounds and the Titans are available, yeah, I'm going to swoop them and get them. I think they're going to be underrated there. Now, Ryan, let's talk about some breakouts. Who you got breaking out this fantasy season at quarterback?
At quarterback, as far as breaking out this fantasy season, that's a good question. I would say, and I hate to lean on the Browns bandwagon, but Baker's got a solid squad around him. He's got a new right tackle in Conklin. We mentioned that. We'll see if that's going to add to the chemistry there. I think he's going to be a solid addition for that team. But I think Baker's got something to prove, and I think he's a gamer who's probably been putting the work in. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, again, Kareem Hunt. Hopefully he's done hitting ladies and ready to hit the hole. And we'll see what the Browns have again. With a fan base that's used to wearing brown bags to games, it's tough to say anything as far as that goes. But a breakout, I think if Baker could come out and have a big season, he'd surprise a lot of people, right?
Well, he could. It's just, to me, this is a big year. This is year 3 now. So, and you just changed out management. So management is going to look at you and say, let's see what this kid's got. So they're pretty much probably giving him 1 year to see what he can do. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right. And I think another guy, Cam Newton with New England, that's a big one for me. I'm excited to see how that goes, and I'm fearful that it could work out very well.
That's my breakout. To me,
Cam Newton?
Yeah, he's going into a situation where a coaching staff can mold him and make him, and most of all, protect him. What did the Patriots do all them years with Tom Brady? Protect him. They made sure they gave him weapons, they gave him a good offensive line, and a great defense to back him up. So he's got all the above with the New England Patriots. So to me, he's my breakout at quarterback.
I agree there.
So running back, who you got?
As far as a running back breakout this year, we've mentioned David Johnson already. What about Kenyon Drake? That's not much of a breakout because I think a lot of players are going to draft him higher, and he maybe even be a keeper in certain leagues as far as that goes. But I think he's just going to expand on what he started last year, and I think a breakout guy, Kenyon Drake.
That's one of mine, so I'll touch on the other one, Devin Singletary.
Okay,
up at Buffalo. Up at Buffalo. Nobody's in front of him. This is his backfield to lose. The reason he's important, by October, November, it's getting cold up there. It's going to be hard to pass, so where are they going to go? They're going to go on the ground. And that's very important to have come October, November, which is fantasy football playoff time. So he could be a big one there.
Got to be able to run the ball when it gets cold.
Absolutely. Who you got at receiver?
A breakout as far as receiver goes. Who do you have, Chuck? I don't know.
You don't know? I got one.
I'm going to pass. Come back to me on that one.
He is a Kansas City Chief, which you think they cannot have enough breakout players, but this guy, I have high hopes for him. Mecole Hardman, the third receiver, which I think he'll be the number 2 receiver by the season's end. He'll be right there. He is fast, dude. He can fly. He's a Georgia product. He got drafted a couple years back. As you know, Sammy Watkins had a big year last year. Filled in great when Hill went down. I can see that happening with Mecole. Mecole Hardman, to me, will have maybe not as a big year as Watkins had, but don't be surprised. Game 1 has 100 yards and a couple touchdowns. That kid's good. He's got potential. He's really good.
I can see it. I'll go with maybe even a rookie here.
Okay.
T. Higgins.
Solid.
With the Cincinnati Bengals.
I like it.
I think he's a young guy. He's going to come in, and obviously with number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, we'll see how that chemistry works out. And A.J. Green, is he going to play?
He's going to play. As of right now, as far as
so how does that depth chart? A.J. Green, I'm not even sure the rest of those
he's
receivers.
He's not even number 1 receiver.
Part.
They have Boyd at number 1.
That's right. Okay.
They got Boyd, Green, Ross, and Higgins.
So he can fit into that mix, I think. And
I mean, that's a solid group.
if he's anywhere near as productive as he was in college, he could be worth a look as far as in some deeper leagues. And this year we're going to have some deeper rosters, probably deeper rosters than we ever have.
That is true, man. But that's a solid pick. I didn't think about Tia. Shame on me. I think you slapped my hand. Whew, that's horrible.
Well, we'll see.
At tight end, who you got?
Tight end. I'm going to go with Jonnu. We've already mentioned it, but I just can't think of anybody else as far as with the most upside. And with Tannehill running the helm, I expect to see a lot of targets go Jonnu's way. I even expect to see him maybe get a couple more carries out of the backfield after we saw how quick he was on some of those last year.
That was my pick as well. Jonnu Smith
Sorry to keep stealing these from you, Chuck. I promise I don't have your notes.
You gave your perspective. I'll give mine. Jonnu Smith is a great blocking tight end, for one. Kind of reminds me of a Delaney Walker 2.0.
Okay.
But I think he's slightly more athletic than Delaney was. He's fast. I mean, we saw flashes of this guy. Like, he could be a tight end 1 if he wants to be. But he's got the quarterback in place. He's got the receiving core around him. With Jonnu, yeah, I can see a breakout.
Maybe even Greg Olsen there in Seattle.
That's a good one. I like that one.
I like the pairing.
I do. I mean, that gives a security blanket for Wilson, for sure.
For sure.
Especially if you don't get Gordon. But with breakouts also comes busts. So I think our list consists of some high names that had big years that could disappoint. So at quarterback, who you got?
And when I look at this, I'm looking at guys that I'm not necessarily going to go draft. So maybe they're not going to be a total bust, but whenever I'm looking at it, I'm not drafting Carson Wentz or Jimmy G.
So those are your 2 busts at quarterback.
Yep.
Now, when I say bust, I say they don't meet the expectations that they did last year as far as scoring. They cost you more wins than they get you more wins. That, to me, is a bust. So I say, I got 2. I say Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff.
Lamar Jackson, man, going out on a limb there.
Lamar Jackson, he's going to put up numbers, but is he going to put up the same numbers as last year? I don't think so.
You're just afraid for his health as much as he runs the ball.
And he gets a little risky with it. It takes one bad hit. I'm telling you, he needs to slow it down.
I would never wish that on anybody, especially a guy as exciting as Lamar Jackson.
And, of course, Jared Goff, man. I mean, I just don't. I mean, they just lost Brandon Cooks. Of course, they have Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. But they lost Todd Gurley too. I just don't see it.
Wouldn't be surprised.
No. Who you got at running back?
Running back duds. I've got Dalvin Cook.
That's a good one.
Melvin Gordon. Joe Mixon.
Solid. I've got 2. Cam Akers, I think, will be a disappointment over in L.A. It seems like I'm picking on L.A. right now, and I'm not. But it's just Cam Akers is going into a situation that's kind of volatile a little bit with the Rams. I mean, if he would have gone a couple years earlier, yeah, it would have been a great situation. But I just don't feel like their offensive line is not as strong as it was years past. I can see him being a disappointment because he was a high pick.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
And a big one here, Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
And
he's a keeper in my league that you're in.
Yes, he's going to be my keeper. I mean, it's obvious. I have to. I would be stupid
but
not to.
You think he's not going to live up to
I'm
expectations?
I'm afraid he's not because he's in an offense that's going to pass a lot because there's a lot of mouths to feed on the outside. And then you also got Kareem Hunt that's nipping at the bit to get out, to break out, man.
I don't agree with you here. I think Chubb's in for a big year.
You think so? I'm not saying he's not going to get 1,000. I mean, he had, 1,400 yards? He was right there with Derrick Henry right at the end of the season rushing. I don't see that happening again.
They're going to look to get him involved, so we'll see what he does with those touches.
All right. Receiver, who you got?
As far as duds go, receiver, Stephon Diggs, potentially there in Buffalo.
Okay.
Keenan Allen. Without Phillip Rivers in L.A., he's going to start with Tyrod Taylor. And not that it's necessarily, because we talked about it's going to be exciting to see Cam Newton in New England, but Julian Edelman, I think he's going to see the number of touches go down.
Yeah, I agree. Julian Edelman, that's a good one because I think they're going to be more ground and pound. That's Belichick's style. And you hate picking up Patriots players, counting on them because Belichick don't give a crap about that.
Right.
He don't care. My receivers that could disappoint, I've got Adam Thielen could disappoint because to me, I'm not saying he was relying on Diggs, but Diggs took off the pressure off of Thielen. Now Thielen's going to be the main show. Let's see how. I mean, he could come out and have a great year, but when you got freaking Kirk Cousins throwing 6-foot balls way over your head, good luck. You're in for a disappointment.
Social distancing.
Robert Woods, to me, will disappoint. He had a good year last year. I mean, he had a great year. He had 1,000 yards, couple of touchdowns. I think he almost had 100 catches. I think he'll disappoint. I think Kupp is going to get his numbers because Kupp is a good talent. I'm not saying Robert Woods isn't, but I just don't see him repeating. And I got Keenan Allen as well because no Phillip Rivers. You've got Tyrod Taylor there. Yeah, I just don't see him duplicating his numbers. So at tight end, who you got?
Tight end, when it comes to duds, I think you mentioned him earlier, but I think we can expect a bit of a back step from Mark Andrews, just because I don't think the offense there in Baltimore, and I'm not hating on those guys, I don't think it's going to be as prolific as it was last year, and I think the numbers start to dip when you look at the tight end position there as far as for Mark Andrews, and they're going to spread the wealth around there.
I think that's the most volatile position in the NFL because that changes like a lot, but it's in short supply. Like you get one or two guys maybe possibly break out. And, you have receivers that 5 or 6 of them break out. But
another guy, though, that I've chased around a couple of years, Jimmy G. He's in Chicago now, not going down that road.
Jimmy Graham.
Yep.
Okay.
Jimmy Graham. I got to be more specific.
Yeah,
there.
I was about to say, we got another Jimmy G in San Fran. I was like, wait a minute.
Not chasing either one of those guys in fantasy.
But I got Tyler Higbee.
Okay.
Man, I mean, I have been trashing the L.A. Rams right now, but Tyler Higbee, they got him ranked in the top 8. Now, that's too high. They got him ranked over Gronk. I'm like, nah, I'll take Gronk. I don't care how long he's been out. You're a fool if you don't take Gronk. If you take Tyler Higbee over Gronk, you're a fool. That is a statement. But those to me are the bust. I only got one. Tyler Higbee's one I think will bust.
Okay.
And maybe, and you like you said, you touched on Mark Andrews. I don't see him duplicating what he had because there is no Hayden Hurst. It's a double-edged sword. That's great to have because you're the main one, but at the same time, you're the main guy, so they're going to double-team you a lot. So
let's finish this segment up with this one. What about, Chuck, how about your garbage time players?
Garbage time players? Now, what this is, folks, garbage time players is players that are on bad teams that compile numbers when they're getting blown out.
Every good fantasy football manager knows some good garbage time players to look out for.
All right, I've got one. Gardner Minshew will be a good garbage time player.
He'll be playing in a lot of garbage.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Jaguars who are a complete rebuild. I mean, other than Fournette and DJ Clark Jr., those two are the only really good players there. And be expected to see those two get a lot of garbage time numbers too.
For sure.
Who you got?
Garbage time players. Again, look out for the Matt Stafford. I think he's going to be throwing and playing from behind a lot. When it comes to running back, look out for, I think, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Guys, with the Washington football team, I don't think he's capable of putting together even a 4 or 5 game stretch without getting hurt. And Adrian Peterson just keeps getting it done. And let's face it, they're going to be playing from behind a lot. He's going to probably be the only good thing about that offense once again. Garbage time receivers, again, probably look out there to Arizona. Look to the Chargers, Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
I think he could have some garbage time numbers, but just not enough to make me want to probably draft him in the early rounds.
Right. The Jets always have a garbage time receiver. Like last year, it was Robbie Anderson. He had some good garbage time numbers. This year, they've got like the rookie out of USC, Michael Pittman Jr. He could be in line for some garbage time numbers. a former receiver to Sam Darnold a couple years back. So there's potential there. So another one, Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. We could see him trail a lot. And he's going to throw the daylights out of the ball. And who's waiting on the other side, Mr. Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, watch out for Calvin Ridley. I think he could take the next step this year, too.
That's a good one. Bama boys, man, on that outside are scary. But that's it for the fantasy predictions so far. Ryan, what else you got, bud?
Man, let's take a quick rundown of just because we're getting ready in our league to draft, at least, in both of our leagues. Yours is a full redraft. Mine, we do 3 keepers. And in that, we had a discussion because of COVID and in the unknowns. We added 4 IR slots and added an additional 2 bench players. So we have 10 bench players. But I thought we would take a quick rundown of just the teams in that league, including our own. Take a look at and just predict the keepers real quick for those. So, if you're not interested in listening to these teams, tune off now.
Turn it off.
But let's take a quick look. So we'll start and just go in no particular order here. When you're looking at keepers, right, you want proven commodities.
Right.
We start looking at David Cole's team in our league. His team named Too Many Cooks. He's only been in the league a few years. He's had some decent teams that haven't really put together a good season yet. But the 3 keepers that I have pegged for his team, he has Zeke. You're obviously keeping him. Lamar Jackson, I think you keep him as far as just looking at the talent on this team. And he has Michael Thomas there. Now, the questionables I had on here, Chuck, would you replace either one of these guys, Tom Brady or Calvin Ridley?
Ooh, I would replace Tom Brady because if you got Lamar Jackson, roll with it.
You listed him as a bust, right?
I do, but still.
I can understand that. But so Zeke, Lamar Jackson, Michael Thomas, I don't see how he makes any other moves there.
Yeah, I think
barring a trade.
Barring a trade. I think those are the 3 as well that I'm looking at. I don't see nobody else, nothing on the bench. Yeah, he's going to roll with those 3.
Next team, my dad's team. Attention, school is in.
Nice.
So the 3 keepers that I have pegged for him, and I didn't even have any other questionables. Dad needs to draft for depth here for sure. But Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, 2 stud keepers there right off the bat at receiver.
Right.
And his third, and he would pick this anyways because he's a Cowboys homer, but also a guy that, again, I think will have a big season, Dak Prescott.
Yeah, he don't have no running backs. Bless his heart.
Right. I'm not a big fan of keeping a quarterback, but he needs to keep his here to make sure he has talent to fill these keeper spots out and then draft some running backs early.
All his running backs are from free agency. That is hilarious. That's funny. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think those 3 are solid, yes.
For sure. Next team, Elliott's team, the Big Dirty Shithawks. And he has some good players here. I have 5 potential keepers that I wrote down, right? And here's the 3 that I think he's going to keep. Saquon Barkley, all day, every day. David Johnson, and Chris Godwin, with 2 honorable mentions, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski. And I don't know which one of those you would keep. I wouldn't keep either one of them. But it's worth mentioning you could interject maybe one of those for David Johnson.
I would say that David Johnson, I think, is an absolute keep. I think he keeps 3 running backs.
You think so? So who do you think he's keeping here?
Barkley, Mixon, and David Johnson. You can never have enough running backs.
I could agree with that. So he could definitely be an honorable mention. And you could interject him for David Johnson even.
Yes, he does have Chris Godwin. I'd take my chances in the draft to see if I can get him.
Okay.
I take my chances.
I agree. So, Chuck, let's take a look at your team. You changed your name just shortly before this. So it's Nature Boys Figure 4 Studs. So, Chuck, go ahead and tell me who your 3 keepers are going to be, and I'll tell you who I thought they were going to be.
My 3 keepers, it took me a minute because I was kind of fighting with myself. These 3 that I'm going to keep is Nick Chubb, Chris Carson, and Cooper Kupp.
Surprise. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had you keeping Chubb, also Cooper Kupp, but the one that we had different was DK Metcalf.
I thought about that, but I think I can take my chances in the draft. Okay. I mean, I want to keep at least one good WR1, and I think Kupp's that guy.
You have Sony Michel. I put him down as questionable too, but I don't trust any running back in that offense. chance.
Kyler Murray, I think he'll be available to me in the draft as well.
We'll see.
I just want to keep a good, stable backfield and a good WR1. That's where I'm at.
Probably a solid strategy. The next team, Corey's team, Moss this, Moss that. So some good talent to choose from here. His keepers, according to what I think, Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, Travis Kelce, with honorable mention going to Austin Eckler, who's going to get the full load there with the Chargers this year.
I would say he keeps all three of them, but I think he keeps Fournette, Eckler, and Kelce. I think he'll let Bell walk.
You think so?
Why not?
Would you?
I would.
Ooh. I don't know. Ballsy move there.
But what's Bell done? He's only had 700 yards last year?
Okay.
And an disapproving franchise?
Eckler has produced.
Yeah, I'd rather take Eckler over Bell right now.
Okay. So Phil's team is called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I don't have him pegged as keeping Aaron Rodgers because he has so much other talent on the team, but he very well could keep Aaron Rodgers. The three I have him keeping: Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake, Julian Edelman, with honorable mention again to Aaron Rodgers, obviously, because the team's named after him. And he's a stud, right? But also Golden Tate, maybe?
I'm going to say I'm with you. I think he keeps Ingram and Drake. Those two he's going to keep. He'll keep Boyd. He's the top receiver in Cincinnati right now.
I don't know. We'll see.
Boyd would be a good one to keep. I'd keep him.
I didn't have him listed, but we'll see how it goes. He's got some talent on this team, so he's got some decisions to make.
Ooh, I didn't see Emmanuel Sanders.
Would you go down that road?
I'll stick with Boyd. With Boyd.
The next team on this list, Clay. And Clay's won a couple of titles his first couple of years in. His team named Barry McCockiner. And he's got a decent squad. I'll tell you the guy that I left off of his keepers that very well may be one of his keepers was Pat Mahomes. But listen to the three that I have listed here: Alvin Kamara, George Kittle, and Odell Beckham Jr. Would you keep Mahomes over one of those three?
I'd drop OBJ and just keep Mahomes. I would.
You would keep Mahomes?
Mahomes, Kamara, and Kittle. Those are QB1, tight end 1, and maybe an RB1 elite. Yeah, keep those three.
Okay. It's definitely going to be one of those four, or three out of those four. The next team, Marcus's squad, called the Footballers. And here's the three that I have pegged for him. I didn't list any other honorable mentions. I think this one's locked in pretty much. Tyler Lockett, no pun intended, James Conner, Dalvin Cook.
Really?
What do you think as far as the Footballers?
I would say Miles Sanders would be a good lock. He's the top back right now.
I don't know about that.
No, Jordan Howard in front of him. He's the starter. He can catch out of the backfield too. He'd be a lock.
As a keeper over Cook, Connor, or Lockett? I don't know about it.
I'd drop Lockett. Unless he's a homer.
You're really hating on those Seattle wide receivers out there, and they've put up some points the last couple of years.
That's the thing. I don't trust Lockett, man. I had him a couple years.
Okay.
I don't trust him.
Or Metcalf. You're not keeping Metcalf, I see.
And then there's James Conner, too. I mean, he's got a good slew here. I'm going to say Sanders, Cook, and Sanders, Cook, and Lockett. What the heck? Let's go with Lockett. I cannot believe I'm doing this again.
Good talent to choose from there. The next team, Ashley's team, the girl was all 6s and 7s is what the team name is. And the three that I have her pegged as keeping: Tyreek Hill, Juju Smith-Schuster, Stephon Diggs. Quite the wide receiver trio. I traded Juju to her team a couple seasons ago. I've regretted it ever since, other than last year, obviously. But I didn't have anybody else listed for her. Who would you keep on that team?
It's unfortunate that she has Damian Williams because he would have been a good start.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think what strategy you would take here, keep the three receivers, go after Clyde Edwards Hellister. You got to go. Go ahead and get the replacement. Get him in the first pick when you start drafting. That'd be a good pick.
Okay. The next team, Corey, and I don't know Corey. I haven't met him yet, He is buddies with Marcus in the league. He joined us last year. His team's name is Cajun Crawfish. He's got a good little squad. Listen to the 3 keepers I have pegged for him. I didn't have anybody else listed. DeAndre Hopkins, Todd Gurley, Adam Thielen. Would you change that list up at all?
I'd change the Thielen. I'd keep Gurley, Singletary, and Hopkins.
Okay.
I'm just a running back guy. I like to keep my running backs.
Back those running backs. I like to keep them deep.
Because they go thin by 5-6 rounds.
I'm not hating on that strategy. Next team, the team that I kicked his ass in the championship game last year, Vince's team, Greasy Horse Show. And, man, such a greasy team here. Listen to these keepers. The 3 that I have pegged for him, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown, Zach Ertz, and the 2 outsiders, T.Y. Hilton, Allen Robinson, the 3rd. How would you stack those 3 up? Would you trade out Cooper, Brown, or Ertz?
Whew, that's he's got a good slew here. I think he lets Watson walk. Potential to keep Jones. I'm going to say he keeps Cooper. He keeps Jones. And he keeps Ertz. He lets the rest walk.
Okay. You can't go wrong here with all the talent.
No, he's got a good pull here. I see why he made it the championship. It's a solid lineup.
And then we're going to finish up with my team, obviously because it finished at the top of the standings last year. Championship squad. This team here, I felt like I had a decent amount to choose from, but the 3 that I went with seemed like no-brainers. Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Mike Evans. The 3 outliers that I thought could have stood a chance maybe, and maybe only 2 of these are legit. Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, Jarvis Landry. Would you change that list up at all? McCaffrey, Henry, or Evans?
Yeah, you got to keep Henry in there. I like your lineup. You've got 2 running backs that are without a doubt probably 1-2 in the league right now.
I like the way it looks.
I mean, as running backs, you're probably set. You're probably good. You're good. Yeah, so keep your horses.
But still, if I get one that falls to me in the first, I'm looking to stack that position as well, though. Because I'm confident about the ball gets spread around so much in the league that to find the heavy workload guys, something you have to do when it comes to running back.
I think you did right there. You got your 2 horses and you got your 1 on the outside. Perfect. I like it.
So there you go. The Cookeville Fantasy Football League. Our projections as far as the keepers, some exciting radio. I hope you're still with us. We're about to close things out. Chuck, what kind of closing thoughts you got for us today, brother?
Closing thoughts. 1, I'm just glad fantasy's back. I've been texting guys all day long today saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. But as an owner, we talked about this last week. Be prepared for COVID stuff to happen, whether it cuts the season short. Be adaptable. But always stay positive. Just think, sports is back in. Football's going to happen. College and pro, as of right now, is going to happen. I am so excited for this fantasy season because it brings friends together. I mean, the league that I'm in, that I invited you to last couple of years, most were friends years back. It's the way I stay connected. To me, that's what fantasy football is. We stay connected. Trash talking just comes with the territory. I'm just glad it is back. We're ready for some football. What do you say? Are you ready, Ryan? Are you ready?
I'm so ready. That was nicely worded, Chuck. I agree. Fantasy football and the league that you joined as far as my ESPN league, a lot of those guys, we've played together for years, since back in high school as far as that goes. And you get to connect every year. There's just something to it. Get in there, talk a little bit of shit in the chat rooms and get people riled up, and you get to check in every week. And it's something I look forward to, the draft where we get to hang out with buddies and all that stuff too. I'm excited to have fantasy football. I'm very hopeful we get a full season. I'm excited for the NBA bubble, even though the Grizzlies are hurting right now.
Right.
You know what?
Still early.
Sports are back.
Still early.
The product looks good there regardless. Let's go Preds. Let's go Grizz. Let's go Braves.
Let's go Titans, man. Man, we're right there. We're right there. And, folks, I just created a Facebook page. Look us up on Facebook at Run and Shoot Podcast. Look up me and Ryan on Facebook anytime. If you got anything you want to request us to do, we'll do it, man. What this is all about, man.
And you'll have to hit us up on Twitter, too. We don't have an official page yet, but follow me at RCSmith23. Get it, Chuck, when he gets unsuspended. He's been on there talking too much political nonsense, and he's got his account hacked. What is your Twitter handle, though, when you do jump back on there?
TN Orange Bleeder, TN Orange Bleeder, at TN Orange Bleeder. But I'm probably going to end up making another one because some bum decided to cry. But
he's in Twitter jail. I think it was a fellow. Did you say it was a fellow Titans
It
Twitter
was a fellow
follow
Titan.
that actually reported you?
yeah, I must have hurt his poon pretty hard there a little bit. Poor little baby.
No.
Poor
Well,
little baby.
when you get out of Twitter jail, again, make sure to give us a follow at Tennessee Orange Bleeder, at RCSmith23. Look for updates. Look for weekly podcasts as long as we've got sports.
We're talking. We are talking. But, folks, we appreciate you listening in. And we'll be having another episode. I'm pretty sure we'll be still talking football. And we'll see what comes up. We might be doing a new segment, possibly called the Bracket Buster. We'll talk more about that next week. What you say about that, Ryan?
I'm down. Maybe throwing a little bit of living in a van down by the river. A little excitement.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, folks, till next time, appreciate you tuning in. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Ryan.
Until next time, my friends, stay tuned. This is the Run and Shoot Podcast. We'll see you later.
Keep it classy.